Kira, you got a story for the people.
I do.
What is going on?
Yeah, as the coronavirus pandemic began to take grip on the country in March, dozens of states passed eviction moratoria that protect their tenants from being removed from their homes. But landlords in most states are still able to file eviction notices, meaning that some tenants only have until the day their state's eviction orders expire until they have to leave their homes. So in Texas, where the pause on eviction proceedings actually ended on May 19th, so just about a week ago, a local CBS affiliate found that landlords in North Texas had filed at least 1,111 eviction petitions between March 16th and early May. As the country continues to reel from mass unemployment, a U.S. Census Bureau survey published last week found that 21% of Americans are not sure if they'll be able to pay rent next month. And then according to an Urban Institute study, 10% of parents and guardians with children under the age of 9 living at home said they were late or didn't pay their rent or mortgage between March and April because of financial hardship. Eviction protections expire in Iowa on May 28th. Residents in Florida could begin facing eviction as soon as June 3rd. And in Washington state, eviction protections are lifted on June 4th. In California and New York, 2 states with giant populations, eviction protections expire in late June. The coronavirus relief bill signed into law in March suspended evictions through July 24th for those who receive federal housing assistance and for non-payment of rent on properties with federally backed mortgages. The Urban Institute estimates that the federal moratorium protects more than 1 in 4 rental units nationwide, or about 28%. And Representative Ilhan Omar in April introduced the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, which would cancel rent for tenants and transfer mortgages to the federal government and allow landlords to recoup their rent costs. Efforts by Omar and other progressives in the House to include the bill in more recent coronavirus relief legislation fell flat. So it's also becoming increasingly clear that the economic blow of the pandemic will last even after states begin to reopen in the coming weeks. According to a recent study from the University of Chicago, 42% of coronavirus-related job losses aren't expected to come back. So, you know, the article goes on to express the disbelief of people who are experts in urban housing, and then also tenants saying like they're shocked in disbelief, amazed at the fact that humans would do this to one another during a time when it's clear people are in dire need of a hand up. And they're not getting any relief. And a lot of it also is because a lot of these landlords, especially the ones who are smaller businesses, are also not getting a lot of relief. So it's sort of a domino effect inside of that. So what do you guys hear?
Okay, so if you roll back the tape of our shows in the last, I don't know, month, 2 months, this is exactly what I was saying would be coming. Because it was obvious that this is how it was going to happen. That sure, there's this moratorium, which is, of course, as always with Nancy Pelosi and everyone else in the Democratic Republican leadership, it's a move that really doesn't matter in the long term. And that's, again, it's the same distinction between Biden and Trump and anyone else. It doesn't matter in the long term. You're still getting screwed. So these people have, again, we talked about it, people making under $40,000 a year are 40% unemployed right now. So they have no money, nowhere to go, and now they're being evicted. Now everyone was saying, oh, don't worry, there's protections. Like there's a lot of people I know that are much more in the, let's say, neoliberal camp that were like, oh, don't worry, everything will be fine, as they sat with their mostly paid off mortgages with a savings account that has money in it and then not being laid off, which also probably helped as well. This is when people will become homeless in enormous numbers very quickly. Because the second that I didn't actually realize that they had timed it so that you could kick someone out the day it expired. Because you have to do a lot of paperwork.
I was really surprised by that.
There is my naivety. I was at least, okay, well, they'll at least stop the process until like the day, and then you can. No, they're having it all set up, and now we're going to have, of course, we're going to have people that are obviously going to get shot to death because they're going to refuse to leave or arrested, and they're going to criminal records. We're going to have people whose kids are going to be pulled away as a process of this. We're going to have millions of Americans suffer an enormous amount in a way that costs the U.S. taxpayers, costs the U.S. governments, fills up jails, doesn't help employment levels at all, doesn't really even affect or help landlords, because if you have like, I don't know, 5 or 10% of the population can't afford homes, then demand overall has gone down, which means prices go down, which means you're hurting your own rental price in the next couple months. And then in addition to that, when someone's on the street, we did a thing about this before, if someone's homeless, the city it has to pay, or our city or just in general, it's about $70,000 a year to taxpayers for someone to be homeless. And I'm sure it's even more if they have kids. Now, what happens to those kids who now can't get into school on time, can't do homework? If you were to convert all of this cost long term into like a GDP version of like lost productivity, we're talking probably double-digit trillions of dollars over the next 20, 40 years because of just this. And yet all people can say is, well, we can't spend the money right now, even though it'll cost us way more later, because Ilhan Omar was right. If you had just made the shift so you couldn't kick people out, the federal government took care of the mortgage and those costs, and you just had to, I guess, deal with the utility bills, that seemed like a reasonable thing to do. But of course, Nancy Pelosi was like, I know better. Let me go eat some ice cream.
So I'm just going to keep my response on this a little bit short and brief. This is the American dream, everyone. Welcome. Now that you're awake, do you realize that it's nothing more than a goddamn nightmare? We're looking at the real fact that there are going to be a large portion of Americans that are going to be homeless out on the streets, that will be struggling, where families are now forced to live together at the height.
I was going to say, or they'll be packed together.
Yeah, or either that. On top of that,
or push.
Here's the thing: we are not out of the woods yet with COVID-19. There's all this hype right now that I'm seeing. Everyone's right now trying to live back to normal. Look, I get it. We all want to go back to the past, but the ink is dry. We got to go forward into this uncertain future. And the problem is that there's no cure, no vaccination yet for COVID-19, and that there is a real fact, a real challenge, a real scary situation where there could be another deadly second wave of this virus. And even if we do have a cure for COVID-19, there's always going to be that other uncertainty, that other virus that's out there waiting in wings just to come around. We are not done yet. This is not a victory. Everyone needs to stop celebrating or looking forward to the fact that the states are going to be reopening. Look, I understand that. But the problem is, too, we also got to add in the fact that climate change is going to be a real reality. That's going to be displacing people. Plus, we also add in the fact that, yes, our economy is still not stable. There's right now 40 million Americans who have filed for unemployment. Add in so many other variables, too, that number is much higher. The system cannot work. It cannot hold. And we should have the right for human housing. People should not be forced to live out on the streets. When I drive to this studio every day, when I drive here, I'm seeing more and more homeless tents. I'm seeing more and more people out on the streets. I'm seeing people scared right now. And what is our government doing? What are they choosing to do? They're bailing out the corporations, the very same people who started this system. If we want to break it, if we want to make a better future, we got to step up. Don't be that person who says they wish they could have helped.
I want to add one more little final note as well.
I do too. Yeah, so okay. Go ahead, Daniel.
So another thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of women that are going to have to reunite with their violent exes because they have nowhere else to live. That's going to apply in so many different perspectives at the same time. At the same time, landlords, especially smaller landlords, are also going to get screwed. There was only one solution to this problem in the context that we're dealing with, and that is basically what Ilhan Omar put out. Anything else is a irrelevant answer. Deferring all of this back a month or two does absolutely nothing. Landlords, again, they're screwed as well. I mean, let's pull aside the big corporate ones that are acting malicious. Even them, kicking people out doesn't change the fact that they're still going to have to pay mortgages on all these vacant units. So everyone is screwed. Everyone loses when we could have just helped these people out the same way we seem so happy to help out corporations.
Here was the final note.
All right. Well, so just to give you guys a little bit of perspective around all of this and, how we could actually take care of this issue. The 400 richest Americans own nearly $3 trillion. That's more than 60% of Americans. And every single person in America could be lifted above the poverty line with a one-time cash subsidy of around $10,000 per impoverished family and about $7,000 for impoverished individuals. And the total cost would be about $170 billion, which would be a little over 5% of the wealth currently controlled by the 400 top richest individuals. Just to put things into perspective, I went to a website that maybe we can post. It's very interesting. It puts things into perspectives through pixels and pictures. and it's incredible. And go there if you really want to get pissed off, I guess.
Yeah.